How are you?
Good. Why do your clients call you a business shaman?
Why do your clients call you a business shaman?
Because they come to me wanting me to make more money and find out that what they were seeking was actually inside of them. And a lot of them have already created that external piece or that external validation and realized that they are the chaos. Because when the world outside of them matches what they thought would create the feeling they want, but they still have the dissonance inside of them, that struggle, well, now they start beating themselves up. It's like, well, wait, I made the money. Shouldn't this be working? I did the thing. Why don't I feel the way I thought I would when I made that money? And so they come to me for making more money. What we find out, though, is that there's no such thing as a business problem. It's just a personal problem manifest as a business problem.
You mentioned inner chaos. Where does that come from?
Stories.
Tell me more.
Well, it comes from our subconscious, but like there's a lot of soft ways of looking at the subconscious, or a lot of conjecture, right? So where does the chaos come from? It comes from stories that are patterned into our subconscious, patterned into our nervous system, and dare I say, patterned into our energetic body. So if you grew up in a house where there was no safety around money, and you start hitting new revenue ceilings, but you don't have the safety in you to like the next leap will create financial freedom, but you don't think money's safe, oh man, all of a sudden weird things are going to start happening. Weird coincidences, if you will, that your business starts falling off track. And some of that is our perception and what we see as an opportunity or not as an opportunity. And others are, we'll just call it weird.
So how do you help clients go from experiencing money danger in the body to money safety in the body?
One of my favorite ways to do this is dear money. And other coaches out there are having their clients write letters to money. But where they go wrong is they're not looking at what that letter creates, what that letter finds. And when we find what's inside that letter, and some coaches will even go, oh, well, you got that from your mom. Let's just go straight there. But then they've completely bypassed finding every other little story or event that created the letter to money. Because when I have my clients write a letter to money, all of a sudden it just flows out of them because those money beliefs have been patterned. So we write the letter to money, and then we find the specific memories that created the story around money, and we go and we unwire those.
So client comes to you, they're making $50,000, $70,000 beyond per month in their coaching business. Everything looks great on the surface, and yet there's that inner chaos on the inside. What are the first 3 sentences that you'd work with them on when it comes to money?
That's a good question. First 3 sentences I would work with somebody on when it comes to money. If they're already successful in their business, we'd go, dear money. And then we'd do a good old should detox. We would get a should statement out around money, around what they ought to be doing, ought to be taking action on. And oftentimes, like, I should be doing this. And it can be this like badge of honor, right? Well, I should be doing something. Every time that I take one of these type A high-achieving coaches, high-achieving entrepreneurs, people are doing $50,000, $60,000 a month. I took somebody with a $65 million net worth through a should detox and asked him at the end, he goes, so you looking for a coach? He goes, well, I wasn't. Because after he saw the power of going from should to could to can because, said, oh, there's something here. There's something to this word game. So those are probably the 2 that I would do. You don't need a third.
So what's the real reason that high earning coaches stall out around $50,000 per month?
Because that's that's where they have just enough revenue to feel like they are doing well, but not enough to step into the identity of somebody who's truly wealthy. And if you are at that barrier of needing to step into the identity of somebody who is truly wealthy, well, that requires you releasing the identity of somebody who identifies with the gap between you and being wealthy, the identity of somebody who is striving to be wealthy. You get to literally, the door is open, and for some reason, they're not stepping over the threshold into the new reality of, I am wealthy and I deserve to have true safety around money. They're still operating on a broken paradigm inherited from their parents' parents, and their parents' parents, that we don't have enough to feel safe. And a lot of people listening to this right now are going, that's bullshit. I want to be wealthy. Well, no, my friend, you get what you truly want in this life. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
So how can someone know where their identity is when it comes to money? A lot of people haven't necessarily put any thought into that. They haven't made the connection between identity and childhood stories and their net worth. How can somebody, what are some steps they can do to start exploring the space between all of those things?
Great question, because I talk with high achieving entrepreneurs all the time who go, I have a great money mindset. And then we get into it, and their version of money mindset is just stuffing down the things that go on with money. So slow it down. Get it out onto paper where you can see it, and then slow it down, because these type A high-achieving entrepreneurs, they will write it out at first, and they'll just go through a read, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, I can see it. These beliefs are illogical, and I just need to move past them. But when we slow them down, all of a sudden, like, oh, this reminds me of this, and this reminds me of that, and this reminds me of not having presents under the Christmas tree. And their subconscious has stored these stories. So now we get to go back and literally air those out from their subconscious, from their nervous system, from the story they tell themselves about themselves.
When you say air them out, how are you going about that?
Well, what we're dancing around here is the 4-step process.
What's that?
The 4-step process is a specific writing methodology that time and time again has my clients telling me that I saved their business that was already doing $50,000 to $60,000 per month. Where we take a specific story and we title it and we write it out. And then that's probably the first time they've ever gotten that story out onto paper, right? That's step one. Step two, you're going to read it out loud. And you're going to read it out loud at conversational pace, right about like this. But here's the thing. A lot of people have talked about these things in their life at this pace. When you're talking like this, it's just going right through. You're not actually processing it. So then we take the scenic route through, or as I like to say, you leave the driveway with the parking brake on, because your nervous system is going to want to speed up. You are going to have the parking brake on as you go 80% speed through this story. And for a lot of high achieving coaches, for a lot of entrepreneurs that have went from working out of their garage to having a multi 8-figure net worth, this is the spot where they actually start to see it, because it's the first time that they've slowed down. And then you take it one step further and you air it out. And that's step 4, where you're literally putting the breath into the story. So you go, and wherever at the end of a sentence, full inhale, full exhale, wherever it makes sense to add a natural pause. So every period, most of the commas, some of the ands. And this is where a lot of my clients go, oh, and you get like this eyebrow raise. Like, I haven't thought about that in ages. Because when we air something out, well, now it takes that out from being this like blinder that we're wearing, and we can see what created the belief that fed that story. And then we air that out, whether that's the time we got laughed at in T-ball, or the time that mom pressured us to have a certain body type for cheerleading, or the time that mom chased us around the kitchen with a knife. We go and we air those out. And this weird thing happens where all of a sudden they can operate in their business free of the emotional baggage. Because it wasn't that their ads stopped performing so that they ended up in an emotional spiral. They were always beneath the surface in an emotional spiral from those stories in their past. It's just that the ads stopped performing, and that was the surface level thing that created it. This is why my client Matt is on pace for his first $100,000 month in September of 2025, when in January he couldn't afford to put gas in his car. He's done $150,000 in the last 8 weeks. And he has other coaches who he will hire, and he continues to keep me on retainer. Because when you have emotional clarity, when you have the space to look at the numbers and run your business as a business, you can move mountains.
So you're saying that in some cases, a single memory from or even early childhood could be the thing holding someone back from unlocking full, unlimited financial success.
A single memory or a handful of memories from childhood or earlier, yes, can be the thing holding somebody back from unlocking financial success. And just because you know it's there doesn't mean that you've released it. Just because you understand it cognitively does not mean that you've moved it up and out of your energetic body, out of your subconscious, out of your tissue, because the body keeps the score.
So what's the difference between going into a story, breathing up in the chest, shoulders are moving, chest is tight, versus breathing low, breathing slow, down in the diaphragmatic area?
Well, most of the people who have yet to release these stories, or most of the people who are resistant to this work, their breath has been in their chest. And show me somebody with anxiety, I'll show you somebody breathing in their chest. Mm-hmm. Show me somebody who likes to live under pressure, I'll show you somebody who's breathing in their chest. So when we take the story and we breathe all the way through, well, now we've went from sympathetic to parasympathetic. We've fully downregulated and separated ourselves from the story and from the meaning that we ascribe to it.
There's some research starting to come out now indicating that it seems like we have different types of receptors in the different parts of our lungs. So when we're breathing up through the chest, we're actually giving our body the signal. We're giving our body an instruction to be upregulated, to be fight or flight. And so our brain assumes, oh, there must be some type of threat, some type of danger lurking. Yet when we breathe deep in the lower lungs, the receptors say we're safe. We can rest, we can digest, we can be at peace. And so every breath we take is actually a message to the body of what energetic state do we want to be in. And if you're trying to run a business, what state do you want to be in?
100%. And there is this hustle bro mentality that, well, we need to be in the chest. We need to be fight or flight. We need to be go, go, go. These are the people that get to $1 million a month and burn themselves out. These are the people who never end up having kids or good family connections. These are the people who, and there's an individual who has written multiple books around $100 million something. And he's starting to recognize that other people who make less money are happier than him. I give it 5 years before he's talking about self-actualization and finding God, whatever his version of that is.
Have you heard of this idea? I think they call it the happiness cap. Is that up until
Happiness
somewhere
index.
around $70,000, $80,000 per year? And obviously this changes a little bit based off of inflation.
How much money the
there's a
Federal
linear
Reserve
connection
prints.
between income and life satisfaction. But once you get to a certain point, it flattens off. What's that? What's happening there?
The happiness index, and in 2014, I saw that it was $70,000 per year. So with how much money has been printed, it's likely double that now.
Yeah.
And it is the point at which quality of life, you have met your basic survival needs, and now your happiness is dictated from within. And if you think that you still need to chase more above the happiness index, hey, there might be benefit to creating generational wealth. But if it comes at any detriment to your connection to your spouse, to your partner, to your kids, to yourself, you're moving backwards. And that's my take on the happiness index. Like, pay attention to that. Like, if you're always looking for the next thing, well, now we have destination addiction. And we likely have celebrated 0 of our wins along the way.
So how does celebrating wins help a person move further into financial freedom?
When you can appreciate what you have, you'll stop giving it away just so you need to get more. Because people will make more money and then buy more things to keep themselves cash broke so that they have a reason to keep going. Now, celebrating wins can be tough for somebody who hasn't cleared out the reasons that they're not celebrating wins. So this is where like, oh, just do your gratitude. Oh, it doesn't really work for me though. Yeah, because you're still running on the story of your dad saying that you weren't enough because you didn't make the team. And like, again, you might cognitively know that that is a broken story. The amount of times though that I've been guiding people through my 4-step process where they're like, they get through step 3 even, they're like, oh, I get it, man. I get it. I'm like, all right, just do me a favor. Breathe through it without fail. Because water works because any feeling felt fully is bliss. And that, I mean, that's a Joseph Campbell quote.
There you go.
Yeah.
So let's say you're a leader. You're CEO of a company. You got 10 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 employees. What happens when you take a person in that position of influence and you show them how to breathe? You go into their stories. How does that affect everyone under them?
You just teed me up for the grandfather clock on purpose, I think. And they become the biggest grandfather clock in their environment. And there's one in every room. And what am I talking about? A physicist in the 1600s was laid up sick in bed. Have I shared with you that I found the root of this in the web of meaning? So a physicist in the 1600s was laid up sick in bed. He's in the UK, and he had been tinkering with his grandfather clocks. And they were set up at the foot of his bed. And he realized wherever he would put them back together, they would fall in sync across the room, swinging in opposite rhythm in unison. Now, he was laughed out of rooms in the 1600s when he brought this to people. But in recent decades, it's been proven that those grandfather clocks were communicating through tiny vibrations in their wooden housing across the room. The same underlying mechanism as faucets that sync up, as tides in the moon, as females whose cycles sync. So a leader who's breathing low and slow, who has control of their stories, well, now that's culture creation. And Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's how you win.
Powerful. What's the difference between gratitude and integration?
Gratitude bypasses the reason that we think we need to do a gratitude practice for a lot of people. Integration is looking at the reasons that we weren't grateful in the first place so that we wake up grateful on purpose. Yeah. My gratitude practice is I have a toddler. I have a wife. I have 2 dogs. I put my feet on the floor. I put my hand on my heart. And I'm good. The difference between gratitude and integration is that gratitude is a Band-Aid for people who haven't done integration work, who haven't looked at the underlying mechanism pulling the strings in their subconscious. Keep that one short and sweet.
It's becoming really trendy right now especially in Silicon Valley, but in the general, the business world, the financial world, the corporate world. People are taking time off, flying to the jungle, taking plant medicines, coming back with all these new ideas. Oh, I saw my shadow. I'm doing shadow work.
Yeah.
And invariably, Monday comes. How can someone take the information and the insights that they may have experienced during these plant medicine ceremonies and integrate them into their everyday life?
Write them down, read them out loud, read them slower, read them with breath, and find what lies underneath it. Plain and simple. And what are we talking about there? Well, if plant medicine connects us to whatever there is, the ether, God, universe, well, everything is vibration. It's been proven. If sound is vibration, words are vibration, then the words we speak or don't speak and the vibration with which we speak or don't speak them is absolutely paramount. And whether we spoke them out loud or just thought them, that is stored in our tissue, in our soul, in our energetic body. So how do you actually integrate a trip to the jungle before you go back to the boardroom? Well, you hire somebody with the skill set to take you through the 4-step process. Because when you dig into the vision of the jaguar who talked to you, and like, I'm all for this, right? And how do you integrate a psychedelic journey before going back to the boardroom? You write it down and you find out whether you were staring at the root or whether you were staring at the plant, and you need to rip it out to find the root.
Mm. And how would you go about ripping it out to find the root?
You write it down, you read it out, you slow it down, you read it with breath, and then you ask, well, and here's what I haven't shared about the 4-step process. Whether it be a psychedelic journey or a mundane business task, you need to ask the magic questions. And the 3 magic questions after you write something down when you're in the middle of the 4-step process is, what's your strongest emotion? Where in your body do you feel it? And when's the first time you can remember feeling that? Because you didn't learn to feel that motion in that emotion in that moment. You learned to feel it when your body patterned it into your psyche and into your subconscious when you were 5, 7, 9, 12 years old. And that's where the pay dirt is. And this is why my clients have weird things happen to them. Weird, the etymology of weird is of having the ability to control destiny. And my clients go in and they work a couple stories. All of a sudden, they have more inbound leads than they thought they ever would. My clients go in and work a couple stories and they get a paid in full from a client who wants to upgrade to 1-to-1 after it being a dry week. Energy is real, but a lot of people are trying to work the energy as opposed to pulling the lever that moves the energy.
What is that lever?
Words and stories. Language. Writing. And breath. And if we're going to go, as Mark England would say, if we're going to go gun to head, it's the breath. Looking at your words and stories, airing it out. Now we're back into your breath. And believe it, in the Kabbalah, there's a word for God. It's basically a breath. It's as best as I can do it. So the breath connects you back to the divine or whatever your version of it is. My third 5-MeO experience, I came back into my body and I swung my hip over and I got an adjustment, like snap, crackle, pop out of my whole body. Because my breath was so low and slow because I was so downregulated that my nervous system said, let's just let go of all of this. And while, yes, I've had those 5-MeO experiences, I've been way out there. I have done psychedelic readings on people. I have reached out and touched the time-space continuum, and in that moment, had my Bluetooth headphones disconnect. And words and breath and stories are what I keep coming back to because it's the most powerful lever that I have found to pull.
You were saying earlier that words themselves are vibration. And at this point in time, the physicists, the people who've devoted their entire life, their entire career, their entire lineage of careers to studying the material universe and what it's made of, are also saying that all that is actually made of energy, frequency, vibration. So if that's the case, how are the words we're using affecting the reality around us? It almost sounds like there might be a magical connection there.
Abracadabra comes from Aramaic for with my word I create, with my word I influence. You want to talk about magic? We'll talk about abracadabra. And it comes from Aramaic, which is the root language of all three Abrahamic religions, super old Hebrew. With my word I create, I create as I speak. Okay, now if we look at the characters in abracadabra, the first one means word and the second one means silence. So to create as I speak, to be accurate, the words need to uphold the silence as opposed to betray them. Right? So how are words magic? Well, they knew it back way, 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 way back in the day. And words are magic on a practical neuroscience level too. And we're talking about reticular activating system. You know, when you bought your black Mazda, did you start seeing more black Mazdas on the street?
All over the place.
Yeah. So even less than vibration and energy, if we start noticing something, if we focus on something, we're going to see more of it. And weird things happen when you speak things into existence or when you write them. I had a client who was writing his 10-year vision, and one sentence was, I will be doing workshops at local high schools teaching them how to do weightlifting. Hits period on that. His CRM for his gym dings. He's a gym owner. And it's a new lead for the gym, but it wasn't a lead for the gym. It was somebody saying, hey, I'm a teacher at a local high school, and we're starting up a personal training class. Do you have anybody who would come in and do a lifting seminar for us? Don't tell me words aren't magic. Don't tell me that there isn't power in writing things down. And it only works to its fullest power when you have unloaded, aired out, and unwritten the stories that are counteractive to the magic that you want to create. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because they're stuck in this manifestation loop without first asking, what am I dragging through that isn't allowing me to get out of this loop?
So you're saying it's not just what you do. It's not just positive thinking, looking into the future, having a plan, writing down your 10-year goals. It's letting go of the backpack filled with bowling balls of stories that are actually holding you back.
Yeah, a lot of people think that just because they left it behind them, it's gone, but it's not. It's dragging behind them. Mm-hmm. And you need to cut that cord. And that cannot be done with brute force. You can't say, oh, I'm going to master my emotions. Most people who say they are a master of their emotions haven't felt a single thing fully in their fucking life. They're shoving it down, and they're a slave to their subconscious because they're treating the pile of clothes in the closet like it's the boogeyman. So they run away from it by creating more and more achievement in their life.
So how does one master their emotions?
By feeling them fully. And the best way I've found to feel them fully is to write down what's currently going on in life as an entry point. And then from there, we can find out what story created that emotional pattern in our body, in our subconscious, in our brain, so that we can learn it, honor it, and release what's necessary so we can move forward to where we want to go.
So it seems like there's a pattern. You experience something in early childhood, like you said, 5, 7, 9, one event, and then it seems to loop. It echoes over the years, and maybe it gets bigger and bigger and bigger in scope. What's the mechanism for that? How's that happening?
The mechanism that people claim to understand, or the one that we don't know yet? Because we're talking about more levels of the human existence than we understand right now. Mm-hmm. The mechanism as we understand it for that loop that is created is 7-year-old Susie has her aunt tell her, wow, that dress is fitting you a little tight. Maybe you should slim down. And in that moment, she understands that she's overweight and she needs to diet. Now, Susie, when she's 23 years old, prepping for her wedding, doesn't understand why it's not going well. And it's because she ascribed a meaning to a certain event when she was 7 years old that kept sabotaging her throughout the rest of life. It programmed her reticular activating system to say, you're overweight, clothes fit tight, you have a fucked relationship with food. And until she goes back and looks at that, and, Joe Dispenza talks about we misremember up to 50% of our memories. So we go back and we look, it's just a story. The amount of times I hear my clients say it's just a story after airing it out, yeah, it's just a story now. Cool. So which story do we want to write moving forward?
So let's say a person's 4 years old, little boy, something happens, maybe gets hurt, maybe his feelings get hurt. Naturally, he goes to cry, right? The body is always seeking homeostasis, and we know that water carries energy. It carries information. Yeah. So why do we cry as a physiological response? Well, it seems to reason that there's information that we need to get out of the body. It's the emotional component of throwing up, right? We have these programs built into the body. So this happens, but when the person goes to cry, dad says, stop crying.
Don't be a little
Men
bitch.
don't cry. Exactly. Yeah. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a baby.
Yeah.
But the body never was able to fully process that memory.
Exactly.
So now years and years and years go by. Is it possible that that little boy who's still on the inside of what may now be a successful grown-ass man is going to seek out, or dare I even say create, situations where his body can finally release that emotion? What's going on there?
I'll toss this one back to you. Is he finding situations where his body can finally release that emotion? Or is he finding situations where he can continue to express that pattern of not crying until finally he finds the breaking point? Until finally, and it all comes out in a completely unhealthy way unless he first is introduced to the idea that any feeling felt fully is bliss. And if you can go back to that moment when he was 7 years old and feel that fully, as opposed to whatever piles on top of it in 2026, 2027, well, that's bliss, because that's the emotion that he was never able to fully feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think the effect is of this pattern that we've seen the last, who knows how far it goes back, seems to be at least a couple generations, is that men don't cry, men don't feel emotion. What is the long-term impact of that information that we got as a society?
The long-term impact is a blunted and immature masculine, and maybe possibly an overcorrection to the feminine before finding homeostasis, right? Because men don't cry, men don't cry. Oh, now men have these wild swinging emotions, right? Like crying is an emotional ejaculation, as far as I'm concerned. So what is the downstream implication of multiple generations of men don't cry? The optimist in me says that we heal it and take the hardened, hard times, create hard men that were in those generations and integrate it with an emotionally resonant man. I think a lot of it also, men are these days, and even in the past, like, to go back to a spouse and vent and try and unload emotions, for a lot of relationship dynamics, it can now, the feminine in that dynamic is feeling less than safe with her emotions. So it's in healing them and feeling them so he can heal that fully, so he can hold the grounded space. Because men feeling ought to create more grounded nature.
Let's go back to money for a second. So you hear a lot in the more spiritual woo new age communities, like, oh, money is energy. Money goes where attention flows. Is there some truth to that?
There's some truth to that, but a lot of people who say money goes where energy flows where attention flows, are putting all of their attention on sitting absolutely still, because inside they're scared of what comes with money. So they sit and they meditate on abundance and they talk about abundance, But they know that there are simple, practical, even in their lane, gimmicky methods to creating an abundance of money, but they won't do them. So is attention actually flowing to money? Is energy actually flowing to money if we are avoiding the actions that we know are proven to go get money? So like money flows where energy goes, like 100%. And I have had too many instances of, I'll answer it this way. Yes, money flows where an energy goes in this format. That every time that I have decided I'm putting my foot down on the pedal harder, I'm going to go get some clients this week, I get a referral without fail from people who didn't know that I decided I was going to go harder. Money flows where energy goes. We get to first direct the fucking energy, though. And if we're sitting on our ass meditating, I meditate daily. And if we're sitting on our ass meditating and not doing anything with it, good luck getting energy to move anywhere. And as a tangent to this, I think we've almost went too far in releasing pressure. It's like we can release emotion while still applying enough pressure. Like if we're talking about when I was in the Navy and working in the engine room, if we wanted flow for the air compressor, it was a pressurized system. For any system to have flow, you first need to pressurize it. So this is where like there's always going to be pressure. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong with this work, is they think that they're going to release the pressure. But what you actually need to do is release what's creating constriction. Because when you have these blocks, these stories, well, now you're over pressurizing the system. Or when you release those, the system can flow as it's meant to.
What is the most common constriction that you find people have in terms of a story related to money?
It's one of two things. Either we didn't have enough or we had too much. Like we didn't have enough and life was rough and I watched my parents commit crime to do it, or I didn't get gifts for Christmas, or we had too much and the money stole my parents.
So where do you think this money is the root of all evil comes from? And how deep does that go into the collective psyche?
Ooh. I think chasing money, man, that's a good one. Ask me that again.
Okay. So where does this phrase, money is the root of all evil, come from? And how deep do you think that goes into the collective human psyche?
Money without intention feeds evil. And a lot of people are building businesses without intention. They see that they want they get advertised this $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month and go, well, that's what's advertised. I must want that. Money without intention feeds evil. Money with intention feeds your divine nature. And this is why each and every one of my clients writes their perfect day out, 4 steps it on the front end, and they have a heart-centered, energetic compass on what they're creating.
Would you say that people who are consciously well-intentioned have a responsibility to increase their financial flow so that they can reach more people in their scope?
I couldn't have said it better. 100%. Because if you have something to deliver to this world, if you have something that actually changes lives and isn't just snake oil lost in the abyss of the internet, it is your fucking responsibility to get it in the hands of as many people as possible. So money is the root of all evil as a cop-out to not make boatloads of money while also changing boatloads of life is quite the paradox.
Do you think there's a difference to going into your stories, clearing out your constrictions, consciously integrating your intentions before financial success versus after?
Yes. And you will find the level of financial success that actually feels, I'll take out the feels. You will find the level of financial success that feeds your purpose, feeds the reason that you're here. Now, full transparency, the catch-22 to this one is that you better know why you want. If you've went in, you've cleared out everything, you've cleared out the stuff that you would be running away from, now you get to be very, very realistic about the idea that creating a large level of financial success will require compromise. Because you're going to have to compromise some time from your family, from your hobbies, from this, from that, if creating financial success is something that you are truly driven to do. So that's where, like, if we do it with intention from the start, it may be a really, really quick process because we've cleared everything out. Or, depending on the person and the life that they want to live, truly and authentically want to live, it could be a nice, steady climb. And there's no wrong answer there.
From what you have seen with your clients specifically, and maybe this is a little controversial to even ask this, what's the difference between men and women when it comes to mindset around money and the stories related to it?
Men have an underlying story that they need to carry the load, so they'll put more aside to go make money. Women, the feminine receives, right? So most women that are of the more traditional feminine space, they're going to sit back more. And they require more addition of structure to take the correct actions. As far as money beliefs, that's an interesting one. I don't know if I have a direct answer for that.
Okay. A lot of people say, don't mix family and business. What do you say to that?
Don't mix friends and business. Definitely. Well, and there's exceptions to every rule, right? Be very, very mindful about who you mix with business and set guidelines and parameters ahead of time so that any pre-existing relationship can be preserved if the business guidelines aren't being met. Because the biggest drawback I see for people is they hire a friend, they go into business with a family member, and they think that just because they're friends or family members, they see eye to eye on business. Well, no, have almost even more in detail operating agreements and make sure that the intentions are set well ahead of time.
So when you're running a business and you decide to hire on your first employee, maybe you've cleared out your stories. Maybe you've let go of those constrictions. You've found that nice balance and that nice play of pressure and release of constriction. You're bringing someone else into the equation. How do their stories change the dynamic of the business itself?
Well, 3 degrees of influence says that your habits, actions, behaviors, addictions, and beliefs are contagious to your friends. So if we combine that and the grandfather clock thing, you bring somebody else in. If you've cleared your stories out, you can help to be the center, the grounding effect for them. And be very, very mindful about how much baggage you're letting somebody bring into your business. And if you've done the work, you ought to be able to tell, you will be able to tell who hasn't. And just because they're a friend does not mean that they're ready to step fully into a business if they have yet to release their stuff.
Got it. So you talked about the 4-step method. It's pretty simple. It's pretty elegant. What's the difference between 4-stepping one of your stories and having someone else coach you through the 4-step process?
Orders of magnitude of more effectiveness. When you have somebody coach you through the 4-step process, you get to be a passenger on the ride. So you are purely just going through it, letting the story work itself. You don't need to drive and sightsee. You're just sightseeing. Somebody else is asking the questions. Somebody else is driving the process. Somebody else is looking at the words to be shifted. Because what some of my clients say is the most effective thing is giving them handcrafted sentences that are sometimes born out of sentences that made them cry. We switch one word at a time, though. And next thing you know, it's something that lifts them up. It's hard to do that on your own because you're so close to it, even after airing out the story. And you're often just looking at the mechanism or looking at, well, I should do this, or I should fix this, or I got to fix the way I speak here, as opposed to an outside set of eyes noticing a certain sentence and helping to walk it through.
It's pretty popular in the spiritual community to use things like mantras and repetition to get things into the subconscious. Is that repetition necessary? Is it helpful?
It's helpful. I think what the spiritual community is missing, though, is what are we trying to cover up with those mantras? You know, like if it's helpful in dumping a lot onto a story we haven't addressed. Now, that being said, if we've addressed everything and then we go through a story and we get a affirmation that is crafted for us, yeah, rep it for 7 days, for 30 days. Burn it into your reticular activating system so that you believe it. For any goal to become permanent, there must be an underlying change in identity. And that happens first inside, then outside. So, yeah, rep it. The master is in repetition.
Some people say to create a new habit, it's disagreed how long that actually takes. Some people say 5 days, 10 days, 30 days, 90 days. What's your take on that?
Habit creation comes on the heels of identity formation. And until you release the person who tells you that you are only a $50,000 a month coach, you will continue to knee-jerk against the habits of a $100,000 a month coach.
Where do people get these identities? I'm a $50,000 a month coach. I'm a $100,000 a month coach. Where are these numbers coming from, these set points?
Outer space. From what they were told they need to shoot for, and from what feels safe in their nervous system. And you will never achieve a goal that feels too dangerous for your nervous system. You will magically find ways to be sabotaged by the world around you if you do not feel at least a little bit safe going and getting it. Like, the unknown will always have a little bit of trepidation with it. If your subconscious doesn't feel confident that you can hold that much money, you will find ways to not get it.
So you're saying that teaching your body to feel safe in new, novel, uncomfortable, unknown situations is one of the main keys to success.
Yes. And the only way to effectively do that is the method that I have over 1,000 hours of coaching one-to-one in. The method that people say saves their business in one call. I will put it up against anything. What time we got?
12, 13. How are we doing?
Well, if you want to push, you can push. I'm okay with that.
Anything you wanted to cover still?
You don't have an ending.
We didn't talk a ton about other coaches, maybe comparing to other techniques.
Yeah, ask me about marketing the hero's journey. Like
Okay. Just the connection?
Yeah, what do you mean when you talk about what's the connection between marketing and the hero's journey?
Okay, that is a good question. So what is the connection between marketing and the hero's journey?
Most coaches are positioning themselves as the hero, talking about the abyss or even the elixir that they return with, when really, where does the hero start their journey? Because the client is the hero. The hero starts their journey in the ordinary world. So the most effective guides, the most effective mentors can walk themselves back to the ordinary world and meet their client where they are at that first stage, at that first rung of the ladder, and help them on. They don't expect somebody to come to the abyss and find them down there. No, that's not an effective mentor. That's just somebody who wants to stroke their own ego talking about how many monsters they slayed.
How important is it for a coach to have a coach?
Yes.
Do you have a coach?
Yes. I continually seek out coaches who are outside of my zone of expertise and coaches who I even disagree with at times, because I want to actually expand my skill set and expand my abilities as opposed to putting myself in a bubble or an echo chamber.
What are a couple pieces of criteria or advice that you'd give someone looking for a business coach?
I'd ask them whether they're looking for a business coach or a marketing plug-and-play system first. Because what a lot of people think they need, what a lot of people think they're looking for, is some plug-and-play magic pill. What they ought to be looking for is somebody who can help them actually become a business owner. Because paying thousands of dollars for this magic pill and that magic pill and that magic pill will just keep them on the hamster wheel. Releasing the stuff that's been keeping them from stepping into the identity of $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 a month business owner. That's what an actual business coach ought to do.
There's a wonderful book called The Psychology of Money. And in that book,
Great book.
One of the main theses that is proposed is that people, they handle their finances emotionally. Even when the logical, in quotes, best thing to do is very, very obvious, they will, with blinders on, find ways to ignore that.
Yeah.
Do you find that a person's story, a person's identity affects even their investment portfolio?
A person's story affects every choice they make around money and whether they choose to make it, lose it, hold on to it, spend it, or waste it. And most people will knee-jerk against that and think that they just need another system. And those are the same people who will be out of business in 5 years because their business never felt as good as they thought it would.
Could you make the argument then that the economy at large, or take any section of it, the S&P 500, is actually just a collective index of everyone's, or maybe all investors' money stories?
Yes. The economy at large is emotionally and energetically driven by and harvested by money stories.
So where does someone stand in the collective financial market when they've gone into their stories? They've taken control of their breath. They've let go of the constrictions.
They're in control for the first time ever. And they get to decide where they stand because they become their own biggest grandfather clock. Most people start online coaching businesses because they're seeking freedom. What they realize, though, is that each new revenue ceiling turns up the loud noise that they were running away from, that they thought they would get free from. And my clients, after working their stories, they say, wow, that's real freedom.
Dr. Jordan Peterson says, confront the dragon, get the gold.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a global society now. There are trillions upon trillions of dollars available, essentially limitless wealth available to all of us. What's the dragon for most people?
Fear of losing it all. And until you can handle the idea that you could lose anything that you hold, you will never be able to hold it. As far as I'm concerned. You have to be comfortable with the risk in order to be worthy of the upside. I'm good.
Cool.
Yeah. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome.